All right, so show day here in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I'm very excited to go pick up my daughter at the train station here in about a half an hour. But one of the final steps of my preparation process is to go through all of my fighter cards that are now essentially done and to see if there might be a fighter or two that I could use an extra nugget on, or maybe there's a hole on a prelim fighter that I could fill. You know, we start Myktybek Orolbai, pretty good on him. Tremendous fighter, grew up in the mountains of Kyrgyzstan. Jeremiah Wells, first fight in Pennsylvania since 2019. He's the only Philly guy on the card. We're going to lean heavily into that. He is 39 years old. He says his 40 is like 33, but we'll see how it goes for Jeremiah Wells. Ramiz Brahimaj, good friend of mine. I'm certainly heavy on him as usual. Tremendous perseverance through neck injuries early on in his career. Neil Magny, 38th UFC appearance for him. So I'm not sure I've created more fighter cards for any fighter than I have for Neil Magny. So I know his situation pretty good. Always interesting to look back upon him walking into Miguel Torres's gym when he was 17 years of age. Lucas Fernando, making his UFC debut, former two-division LFA champion, tremendous striker, very aggressive guy, attacks the body really well, knees, elbows. Just excited to lean into a lot of the technical stuff with him. He lost his father when he was 17, and his father, Vanderlei Fernando, was a huge supporter, so we'll try to get that out there. And part of the challenge is if you decide in the middle of a round, you know what, I'm gonna tell the story about Lucas Fernando losing his father, right? You hope you have enough time to actually pay off that story before something climactic happens, but we will try to get that in there. And I will also say some of the walkouts are not televised, depending on where you live in the world, so I might share a story about Lucas Fernando's father while many of you are in commercial break, and then I will knowingly trot it back out there during the broadcast for the people who didn't hear it. Rafael Tobias, managed by Gilbert Durinho Burns, came off Dana White's Contender Series, lost his UFC debut, but a very confident guy, and I think really has a lot of potential at 23 years of age. Tresean Gore, former Ultimate Fighter finalist, a little bit uneven in the UFC, all of his wins by guillotine, but I think this is a really good test for Tresean Gore, looking for the biggest win of his career to date against Vicente Luque, another guy who I don't need to prep as much. You know, I do a fresh fighter card, obviously, for Luque, but I don't need to prep him as much just because I've called so many of Vicente's fights. Eric McConico, rep in the MMA lab. We had a great fighter meeting with him. He really likes the matchup with the undefeated Dante Johnson, who's just a fascinating character out of Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. He's now training in Las Vegas. So I think a lot of what we'll be trying to impart on Dante Johnson tonight is being in Las Vegas, training alongside Sean Strickland, Justin James, former UFC fighter, in his corner. And he also told us in the fighter meeting his name Dante means endurance in Hebrew. So we'll see if that ends up on the cutting room floor or not. Eduardo Chapolin had a really tough weight cut in advance of his short notice UFC debut. He's Daniel Cormier's guy. The Pride of St. Louis, Charles Energy Johnson, the only fighter to have knockouts of the champion Joshua Van and Lonnie Kavanaugh. Always interesting to have Energy on the fight card. Joel Alvarez, former lightweight contender, now welterweight hopeful, taking on Chidi and Jaquani. At lightweight, Esteban Ribovics taking on Edson Barboza. We sat down with Edson Barboza in December before he fought Jalen Turner. And I felt like mentally, physically, emotionally, he was in a great place. I feel like 8 months later, I think the writing is on the wall. I feel like Edson Barboza is treating this as a retirement fight. And even though he's always the first guy to show up at American Top Team and it looks like he's been chiseled out of a rock, father time is father time. I do think for Edson Barboza, tonight his 33rd UFC appearance will be his last. And what a career. What a career it's been. As good a highlight reel as any lightweight of all time. Dustin Stoltzfus from Lancaster, Pennsylvania, but he's really a German. Shout out to our camera guy, Maddie. So Dustin Stoltzfus, right, from Lancaster, PA. Parents grew up Amish, actually. This will be his first professional fight in the state of Pennsylvania. And his first appearance on a numbered card since his UFC debut, all the way back at UFC 255 during COVID. Mansour Abdul Malik. This guy's fascinating, right? How about this quote? I want to be a complete contradiction to my outside of octagon persona, right? This guy walks in all buttoned up, no entourage, by himself, and then he wants to hit that violent mindset when he actually enters the octagon. Kawe Fernandez, a lot of people like him to beat Jalen Turner. He's a slight underdog. That's a great fight on the main card. And then the title fights, Jillian Robertson and Mackenzie Dern. One thing that I thought was interesting in our fighter meeting with Mackenzie Dern, she started her training camp in March for a slot on UFC Freedom 250. I'm not sure the extent to which that is out there. I think maybe it was going to be Mackenzie Dern and Zhang Wei Li. That didn't happen. And now it's going to be Jillian Robertson. And then Ian Machado Gary, of course, against Islam Makhachev. And one thing that we have always heard from Ian is just how different he is, and now he's got a chance to show everybody that he can be the best fighter on the planet. He also mentioned that he doesn't need to flip the switch. I can't tell you how many times in a fighter meeting a fighter will say, yeah, I'll meet with you guys, and then I leave here, maybe do a press conference, but then I flip the switch. And Ian Machado Gary says he doesn't need to flip the switch. He can go from cuddling his son, and if somebody has a problem with him on the street, he's ready to fight a minute later. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And also, too, the passing of Puro Oso Alan Nascimento just weighs so heavily upon the Shootbox Diego Lima team. Diego Lima's best friend was Alan Nascimento, who just passed away. And Diego Lima did arrive here on Thursday, of course, to be in Ian's corner for this title fight. But I just think there's going to be a lot of emotions for that team, and hopefully they can channel them in the right way. And last but certainly not least, Islam Makhachev. And, you know, I wonder how he would do in a straight kickboxing match with Ian Machado Gary, because I think Islam is that talented a striker. But there is a clear path of least resistance, and you know if any team is going to try to take it and exercise it, it is Team Makhachev. I guess most telling from our fighter meeting was the fact that he really wants to run this UFC winning streak to 20. You know, I think a lot of people wondered aloud if Islam Makhachev successfully defends this welterweight title. He's already the most decorated lightweight champion of all time. What is there left to do? But it seems like he wants to make this record even more unbeatable than it already is. If he wins tonight, he's at 17, and then 3 more would give him 20, and with financial freedom, in theory, he would ride off into the sunset. But just amazing to think that Islam Makhachev at one point was 1-1 in the UFC, and the Khabib Nurmagomedov shadow looms so large, and yet here he is now, and a lot of people are suggestive that his career has been even better than the 29-0 Khabib Nurmagomedov. I'm with Ian Machado Gary. I believe this is one of the single biggest title fights of 2026, and I'm going to get suited and booted soon. We'll see you guys later.